Good evening, sir. Oh, hang on. Team's playing funny with me again. Something is muted. Hang on, it's my laptop. I should be able to hear right now. Ah, you're unable to. Ah, that's me. Let me upgrade you to presenter. Which should also mean you should be able to unmute yourself right now.
I am unable to unmute myself, or I am able, sorry.
Yes, you can unmute and now I can still can't hear because my laptop is doing stupid things. What? Where is it?
It's too technical.
Why? But why? Could you try again, Magnus?
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm good.
Cool.
1 day to go before Christmas holiday.
Oh, right. I'm working a little bit more than half Monday, but then I will be off from work until January 7th.
Ah, nice.
It's good for me. Or I will be off paid work. I might go to the office and do fun stuff, but that's just because it's fun.
Exactly. Let me upgrade Daniel as well.
Whee!
Yay!
How are you both?
Oh, good. How about you?
Great.
You're
I am
both quite
psyched.
early. Ah, that's
Yeah,
good.
I always try to be early, because that one time when you're like just in time for your presentation, there's going to be like an issue, the microphone not working or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Like my audio didn't
Yeah.
want to play when I was logging into the Teams meeting.
Oh.
I have opinions.
Yeah. It is Teams.
It's always Teams.
I've gotten so used to Teams now that when I use Zoom, it feels weird and strange.
I haven't used Zoom in ages, I think.
Exactly. Same for me.
It's all Teams.
Yeah, for better or worse. I just
Yeah.
wish Microsoft didn't try to just jam everything into Teams. It's a good, well, it's a good enough communication platform. It's just there are things that should not be in Teams. This is kind of the same thing as with AI. There are things that don't need AI. You don't need to jam AI into everything. I think we all agree on that.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
Can I ask you something? Do you see only my presentation now, or do you also see the slider in the bottom?
I don't see the slider. I see the needle going back and forth.
Yeah, good.
If that's what you mean. Yeah.
And now it's switched for you.
Yes.
Good. Then I will, let's see, how do I stop presenting?
You don't. You're
Oh, right.
welcome to Hotel California or Presentation California.
You can share anytime you want.
But you can never leave.
No, because I'm going to switch from that presentation to a PowerShell window, like half in, but then my screen is this big and it's really hard to share the screen. So if I need to share it, I need to like split it in half, and then I don't have room for the other things I need on it. Like seeing you, for example.
Why would you want to see me?
Well, because you have
That's-
such a stylish, fashionable hat, maybe. I brought my best shirt.
Oh my God.
Did I not get the Christmas memo?
No, you didn't.
Actually, it's tomorrow is the official ugly Christmas sweater day,
Ooh.
but I started
So
one
I'm
day
wearing
early. Oh yeah, what does it say?
I wish it was summer.
I can get on board with that.
I like Brent's shirt that he showed off on LinkedIn. It's stitched, and it says that's not very data driven of you, is it?
What do you mean data driven? What is this data driven thingy?
I don't know.
It's a
I don't know.
corporate buzzword.
Yeah.
It's all the rage now. Everything is data driven.
And or AI.
Data
I
is
thought that was the same thing.
Well, we could have a discussion about that one.
Actually,
So the pension administration company I work with, they invoice obviously the cities and counties in Sweden. So it's like on a monthly basis they invoice a couple of billion Swedish crowns. And the invoicing batch stopped working. So they were discussing, can we get the batch to work? Do we have to go to the manual routine, which is semi-manual? But then they remembered last time they did that, that didn't work either. So while we were working on fixing the batch, they were discussing the manual routine where they actually go in and do some Excel formulas and figure out, I think we should invoice this city this much, and then manually create the invoice from some template, and just like using Word as the invoicing template. Like, yeah, good luck with that. And then like bring everyone in to do enveloping of the actual invoices.
I worked with a company, like one of my first real consulting gigs was building a customer ledger, basically an invoice solution and a customer ledger. And before we got electronically sent invoices, before we could send like text files to the National Postal Service, who would then electronically print and email envelopes to clients, we used to actually print our invoices ourselves in the office all evening, all night, and we would actually have like the entire customer service team just putting invoices into envelopes and adding like postage to them, and I believe it was like 20,000 invoices per batch every month.
Wow.
So I built the initial invoicing solution was a Microsoft Access solution. It was a Microsoft Access database, and the invoices were a report. So, and it actually worked to my huge surprise. We even managed to make the Swedish invoices to consumers have like a special code string at the bottom that when you go to the post office, as it were, back in the day, and you handed them like an invoice that said, I want to pay this, they would put it in like an OCR scanner that they had, so that it would read that code string that would contain the invoice reference number, the account to which you were paying it, and the amount. And those included checksums as well. And so I had to compute those checksums and make sure that everything aligned and worked. And yeah, at some point we managed to produce exactly. And at some
It
point,
was.
we managed to produce invoices with incorrect checksums, and customers would call, 20,000 customers would call customer support. And so they worked overtime that week. I felt bad for them. Yeah, because the way invoices in Sweden are sent and scheduled as well is most Swedish people receive their pay on the 25th or the 26th of the month. And so the due date of essentially every end user invoice is on the 30th or 31st, essentially without exception. So people send this batch of invoices for payment when they have when they received their salary, but just before the end of the month. And so there was no spreading this problem out elegantly. Everyone appeared at once with unpayable invoices. Yeah, there was cake. We bought cake.
But you still have a job, though. Or
Yeah,
was
for
it?
some reason. So call it on the IT, blame it on the IT bubble.
Yeah.
So,
So I saw someone joined and then they left again because we were.
because you questioned my employability.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a name I recognize. How are you, Simon?
Hang on, I need to officially allow Simon to unmute.
I'll make him trusted.
Yeah, something like that.
Now he can unmute.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, I'm liking the Christmas hat and the tie. Nice.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the tie thing, but
You've been staying in shape, Magnus. Very impressive.
Yeah, I have this quite large six-pack down here.
Sure. Yeah, totally. No, I understand.
yeah.
There is a six-pack underneath all the fluff.
Details.
I'm gonna get myself well, I have a cup, but I'm gonna put coffee in it. So I'll be back soon. This is, by the way, my new office that I started renting, which the housewarming of the office will be January 29th. So, I mean, whoever wants to be in Enköping at that night, you're welcome to join me.
January 29. I'll put that in my calendar. If there's free beer, I might just show up.
Daniel, I see you got your date sorted for next May.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Still finalizing all the venue things. But yeah, hoping for the best. So I read that Alexander has a wedding. I don't think it's his own, but he has a wedding to attend. And I have two Norwegian people who have confirmations to attend for children, adult children. But I'm hoping for some good speakers and some good attendees at least.
Well, I think that the wedding thing is such a bad excuse.
It's kind of overrated, because I mean, people get married all the time, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Some several times even.
Just go to someone else's wedding or
Right.
go
I mean,
second
yeah,
one.
just crash a wedding. It's cheaper as well.
Yeah.
Seriously, if you show up at a wedding with 200 people, who's going to recognize you? Who's going to say, hey, do you know the bride and the groom? Right? You're just going to, no, I have another glass of champagne.
Yeah, you just have to come after the dinner because this usually arrange things and stuff.
Yeah, or I mean, you might get picked to make a speech, in which case you'll just have to be creative. But we're all speakers, so we'll just fake it till we make it, right? I've known, sorry, what was your name?
Yeah. Andrew, you are so quiet. I don't recognize you.
How are we doing, everyone?
Very
Good
good.
to be here.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see some familiar faces.
You have Wales represented. Cool.
I do, always.
How's the Gaelic coming along?
Badly, really badly.
They still
Who
left.
can blame you?
Trying my best, but oof.
I remember when I was in Wales for Sequel Bits a couple of years ago, and the signage was in, is it Welsh or Gaelic or
It's Welsh. So what happened
Welsh?
was
Yeah.
when Wales Island split, all the consonants stayed in Wales and all the vowels came to Ireland.
That is how it felt, actually. You know, when you wherever you are in the world, if they use the Roman alphabet, you look at the characters and you try to sort of make the sounds in your head. In Wales, not so much. It's just
No.
kind of, I can't
It's
keep
like
up.
you're speaking with a bad audio connection.
Yeah.
Taking this from Swedish
Wonderful
people.
conference,
Yeah, all right.
though. I'm stressing like nothing else to try to come up with good abstracts. I have 3 or 4 sessions that have been previously rejected, so might as well send those in.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, Andrew, we all do our best. And for me, that's not very good, but that's all I can do.
Well, we opened the CFP for David Cayley, and the usual madness has started. One chap submitted 17 sessions.
You know you can put a limit on session eyes, right?
I know. We generally don't because we don't think that somebody's going to submit 17 sessions. And then there was the chap from America who submitted a session, emailed me his session to my personal email address, not my DBA from the cold email address. I don't know where he got that from, and sent me the session abstract on LinkedIn. I'm just like,
Just to make sure.
just to
Like
make
A
sure.
for effort.
I mean, fair play. Yeah, I don't know. I was like,
Yeah.
cheers, man. Yeah, I believe I have that session. Thank you.
I've
then
been
call
to
and
Data
ask
Cayley.
email.
I can confirm that it is worth really trying to go to Data Cayley. It is absolutely worth it.
Can confirm.
I second that.
Yes.
Awesome.
Also, I have a friend who's a professor at one of the prestigious schools in Sweden, and I told him I had spoken at,
Trinity
lectured at Trinity College, which he
It's
was not
very
amused
true.
at.
Yep, back on at Trinity College, 11th to the 12th of June next year. The only problem we have is that pass on tour, I think, is on the 11th, which isn't great, but hey ho.
So,
And where's
is there a
that?
call for speakers for that?
Yeah, it was out, wasn't it? Or have I just
I
given
haven't
away something I wasn't supposed to?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it on Call for Data Speakers. That's all.
Yeah,
if
but
it's not on Call for Data Speakers, I don't
because
know
it
of
doesn't
the event.
exist. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hang on, let's have a look.
So Data Cayley it is then.
Where is Pass on Tour going to be on that date?
I will find it out for you now.
Frankfurt?
It's June the 10th, 11th. It's on their website, thank God. Frankfurt.
Ah, okay. Well, that's easy enough to get to at least.
Well, you could easily fly from. You could do your session on the 11th, fly out and do your session at David Cayley on the 12th. Like an hour flight from an hour and a half. Nice and simple.
If you fly west, you can sort of make the best of the time differences as well.
Yep. And
Yeah.
it never. And you miss the rainy day. It always rains on the Thursday at David Cayley. It always hammers it down. And on the Friday, it's usually quite nice.
I don't remember if it rained when I got to Dublin, but I guess it did then.
I
mean,
which year did you? When did you speak? Was it last year or the year before?
last year.
Yeah, I hammered it down on the Thursday. I got soaked getting to the speaker dinner. Yeah, and then the Friday was quite nice.
Oh yeah, we had the speaker dinner on the boat, right?
No, that was 2 years ago then. Well, again, so it hammered it down on the Thursday. Oh, that blinking boat, yeah. We booked a river tour, and what the boat did was got us all on there, sailed 20 meters up the river, stayed there, and then sailed 20 meters back. It's like, all right.
It was technically on the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, really
I was
nice.
saying like, oh well, everyone has to be on time. And it's like, literally, I could literally jump onto the canal bank. It's like, why do we want to be?
I had
You would have
a
gotten your money back then.
Oh yeah, from
Andrew, you'll
Hello.
remember I sent an email to all of my my speakers in Stockholm. Like, we're going on a boat. If you're late to the speaker dinner, you can join by helicopter if you want, or
Yes.
you will miss the dinner.
well,
And
to
a
be
couple of
fair, that
people
was
took that really, really seriously. A couple of people were really anxious.
But
to
it's
be fair though, that was if you missed that boat, you weren't going anywhere. If you missed our boat, you could have walked, I don't know,
Right, yeah.
5 seconds up the canal and jumped. But no, everyone here, hang on, let me grab the call for speakers for Data Katie. Sorry, I'm hijacking your session here.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, you've got
And
1.5
speaking
minutes.
speaking of timing, I read that you were going to interrupt speakers if they go over, and so I'm just going to make sure that I start on time. Let me do.
no, your
Well,
time is up, Daniel. We spent it chatting. Sorry.
Yeah, totally.
So the thing is, when people are run over, I just mute them.
Good. You are not
Let's
wrong.
be civil about this. I'm hoping everybody can stay within time, and if you run over a little bit, well, it happens.
We
So
are very
let's
welcoming.
not make a huge deal of this. Daniel, you're up first. For those just joining, thanks for joining the lightning talks. It's beginning to get to become sort of a yearly tradition for my user group to organize some online lightning talks. This year I was quite late with the call for speakers and everything around it. So I'm really happy that people actually submitted sessions and are turning up to present them. So thank you for those who are here. And in advance to the people who are going to be here. And I'm trying to get close to the exact starting time, but I'm not going to do that. Daniel, you're up first with some cool stuff on SQL Server.
Likewise, thank you so much for arranging this. I love lightning talks. They are super hard to make and super rewarding to present. So I'm just super psyched to be able to actually present a lightning talk for the first time in a couple of years. I'm here to talk about SQL Server partitioning. I did a 60-minute session a couple of years ago. It was kind of full of information, and people were sort of scribbling notes furiously, and I figured the people who were not in the room were the people who had too short an attention span to actually learn partitioning in like a full conference session. So I figured I'd just boil it down to 10 minutes, no demos, no dilly-dally, just show you how it's done, not with the intention of learning partitioning so that you can go back to the office on Friday morning and screw up all of Christmas by deploying something, but rather just knowing how it's done and knowing what to Google for. So starting off, why should you do partitioning? Because it's manageable. You can handle sort of the retention policies and the large quantities of data where you need to add and remove large parts of the data in an efficient way without blocking up your database for hours. You can selectively compress stuff, like old data can be compressed, while the fresh stuff can be differently compressed or uncompressed, depending on what you need. You can make really clever backup solutions, which we'll come to. And why shouldn't you use partitioning? Because it magically makes your database faster. Spoiler, it doesn't. There are edge cases where partitioning can really speed up your work, but usually it won't, and that's not the designed use case. And also, it won't simplify your work. It will make things a little bit more complex. So if you were hoping to come here for like how to make your database faster using partitioning, lightning talk, this is the quickest lightning talk of the day, and we're already done 2 minutes in. My name is Daniel. I'm a SQL Server consultant. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. I love speaking at conferences, so much to the point where I've actually organized conferences. I'm for some reason a Microsoft MVP, which I'm very happy of. Please don't take away my MVP. So jumping right into it, clock's ticking. these are pages. Every one of us has seen these. Pages contain a page header. The page header contains the number of the page and a pointer to the previous page and to the next page. That way we can traverse the pages when we do what's known as an index scan or an index seek, which I'll show you in a second. And the body of the page, which is an 8 kilobyte block, contains the actual data. So everything in SQL Server that you store, with the exception of logs, ends up in a page in some way or another. So we use this to traverse our pages from one page to the next page to the next page and next in what's known as an index scan. And please clap because I spent hours on this PowerPoint animation. Same way we can traverse the index pages backwards in what's known as a reverse order scan. And that's essentially all I'm going to say about index pages. Oh, and you can also use these intermediate sort of group pages at the top to find specific points in the database rather than scanning through the entire table to look for a single row. So if your index is ordered in the correct way, you can find the exact row of data that you're looking for using what's known as an index seek. So that's a super, super efficient way to find the data that you're looking for. But that's essentially what we're going to, as much as we're going to talk about pages. Now, if you think of a table containing a ton of pages, we might want to be able to split that table into multiple partitions. You can think of partitions as logical groups, virtual tables under a view, if you will. And the way to create a partition is in a three-step process. We create the function. The function defines the boundary values. In this case, we're looking for an annual partition function. So in this case, we want partition boundaries that are representative of each year. Every partition function can have one or more partition schemes. The scheme defines how we store those different partitions. So for our use case, we might be interested in storing those partitions on different file groups, which may or may not exist across different drives. So you might want to have some archive stuff on slower drives or the highly performant current period on like a fast drive or LUN or whatever your SAN allows. So these align to each other. You can see that the year 2026 ends up on file group D, for instance. And then we just go ahead and create the table, an index or whatever, using the on and then the name of the partition scheme and the column by which we want to partition this table. So in this case, you have a transaction date column, which we use to partition the table. So picking up the pace, this is what happens to our table when we partition it. Under the hood, we create multiple tables. You can think of them as multiple tables, one for each partition. But when you do a select star from the table, you're actually reading from all of the partitions, one after the other. Now, if you think of what we can do with partitions, it allows us to do some magic. The simplest one of them is actually for data retention purposes. Say you have old data, you want to clear that data out. You could just delete everything, but that would have SQL Server scanning across all of the rows, all of the pages, deleting one row after the other, which takes a ton of I/O. Or we could truncate a single partition. So if you think of our partitions in this case here, you have an unallocated partition, and you just rename the two. That's essentially what happens when you truncate a partition. This is a metadata operation. It is instant, and it just clears out the data in microseconds. Almost the same thing is switching partitions. You may have a partition, and you may have another table, and you can just switch them one into the other. They just trade places. It's basically a rename operation under the hood. It's a couple of pointers changing over, and that's all it is basically. And you can switch them back. So you can take the data from some table or even a partition of another table and just switch it back into your partition. So those of you who are working with ETL processes and things, you can figure out how to apply this in like an ETL load process that involves zero downtime for your data warehouse. Splitting partitions is a fancy word of saying adding partitions, because effectively you're splitting an existing partition to add more data. In this case, we're just going to add a file group. We're going to add a file to that file group, or add the file. Yeah, first add the file group, then add the file. Then we're going to tell the partition scheme that whenever I add another boundary, it's going to be on file group 10. And then I split the final range here, this one. So I go from this to this, and I add another partition boundary, which ends up on file group 10. And voila, I've created a new partition. Merging partitions is the opposite, where I take this one. This is old data, so I'm going to clear it out because it's more efficient that way. Then I'm going to merge this range. So I'm going to remove this boundary at 2019, making it effectively just one partition. And when I'm done doing that, I can clean up the files and file groups of the file group 1. Because partitions are effectively just virtual tables under a virtual view, you can do stuff that you could do with entire tables, but on individual partitions. This is super, super useful. So for instance, you could rebuild a table, but you can also rebuild an individual partition. And this is useful in case you want to, for instance, apply data compression. So say that partition 4 contains old data, which is now stale. It never changes. We'll just compress it with data compression page so that it takes less space, is more I/O efficient, more storage efficient, faster backups, what have you. Which leads us to backup as well, which is our final chapter. Suppose you have, again, this range of years in your data. Suppose these are marked read-only. You can mark the file groups as read-only, which allows you to take one backup, store that backup in a long-term storage, because effectively you're never going to overwrite it, right? It's just going to be there until the end of time. Then you can just do regular daily backups and transaction log backups of only those 2 partitions that move. So all of those old terabytes that you have, you never have to think about them again. You can just keep running backups on those file groups where the data actually moves. So this, in our example here, that puts our backup size at like 15–20% of what it used to be when we backed up the whole database. With that, I'm 15 seconds over time, and I'm done with my presentation.
Well done, Daniel. Thanks so much. I put one question in chat. Maybe other people have other questions as well.
Yep.
Please put them in the chat so Intian can start his presentation and we can kind of sort of keep up with my schedule.
Right. So now I take over, isn't it?
Yes, you can present,
Okay,
share,
I
whatever you want to
shared
do.
my
Not a question, but a quick comment, Daniel. Those are the best slides I've ever seen. I love those things. They're amazing.
Thank you. Had a ton of fun.
I must admit, I have more traditional slides, but only a few of them. So in my case, it will be demo only, well, almost. And that's why perhaps I took 15 minutes from our time. So my name is Intian Kuinersma. Together with Reitze, I'm normally organizing this meetup, but today I'm also a speaker. And I'm preparing myself for a session in Vienna on the Data Saturday.
Oh no, his internet is gone.
Oh no. Does that mean
He
we
froze.
need to talk?
I'm
Rest of
afraid
the
so.
time. Okay, sorry. Should start again, I guess?
Yeah, please start over.
There was a little
Hiccup in your connection.
interruption. Yeah, here we go again. So this is without slides. This is all about demo, about the Power BI REST API. And I'd like to start, because it's Christmas time, I'd like to start with a kind of circus act. So, you know, magicians in the circus, they have a rabbit and they take the rabbit and somehow this rabbit is on another place within a few seconds. Let me show this in Power BI. So let me start with showing a beautiful report. It's called Mooi Rapport in Dutch, so which means it's a beautiful report. As you see, there's a pie chart to make it extra beautiful for today. And as I promised, there is also a rabbit. And this rabbit is in this report and in this report only. I will show you. I will close my beautiful report and I will open my empty report. And my empty report is empty as I promised it would be. So it's empty, completely empty. And you know what magicians do? Magicians, they have some kind of formula. They speak at their rabbit and then the rabbit moves. Well, I also have a kind of phrase that I would like to put on the table. In this case, I don't speak it out. I will just write it down. And in this case, I've written it like this. Some people call this Python. And if I press the run button at the right up corner of my screen, I will run this magic script. And if I then return to my Power BI report, you will notice, hopefully, if the demo gods are with me, of course. Okay, first of all, I have to log in. Yes, so I managed logging in, and now I have to return to my Power BI reports, and I'm closing my empty report, and I'm returning to my empty report. And voila, there you are. There is my beautiful report, and there is my rabbit. So I've shown you that you can use the Power BI Web API to move rabbits around. In this case, I was using the Power BI REST API to clone a report, so to speak. That was also the first use case I had for this particular Web API. People wanted to download a report that was made in Fabric, and you could not download this report from there. And then this wish was there to download the report. And then Microsoft said this could be the case, that you would use the Power BI Web API for something like this. So I'm hoping to make you enthusiastic about this Power BI Web API, because it can do a lot of stuff for you. I like to point out to you this website from Microsoft on Microsoft Learn, which is all about Microsoft Power API. You see at the left of my screen a lot of things that you might want to do with the Power BI REST API. So you could list groups, you could list data flows, you could list data sets, you could list your data refresh history, etc., etc., etc. And the nice thing about this web site that I'm looking at this moment is this. If you pick a particular method that you would like to dive into, this website also enables you to try this on the spot. So you see this try it button. And for instance, it says get groups here. And group is just another word for workspace. So if I would say, I want to try this now, then I'm supposed to log in. This will take a few seconds. And after logging in, I will get a bearer token. You see at the screen, I'm authenticated with my credentials, and I also get a bearer token from Microsoft, which enables me to interact with this API. And if I click on run, I will notice that there will be JSON coming back, listing all the workspaces that I'm entitled to. In this case, I'm using my personal account to log into the site. I also could have used Service Principal accounts, and I would have gotten another bearer. Is called. I take this bearer from here, this extremely long code, because I'd like to show you that when you have this bearer code, you can actually use Power Query in Power BI to build a report, and to build a report on your assets on the Power BI service. Yeah. So in this case, I'm just taking this bearer from here because I logged into the site. I go back to my Power BI. I made a Power BI template with some Power Query tricks, connecting to the Power BI Web API, getting the workspaces and getting all the reports in those workspaces. The only thing that you need to enter here is the bearer token, which I just copied from this website. So if I now just paste this in here, I can now click on load. And with my credentials, this Power BI report will connect to the Power BI Web API, get all workspaces and all the reports in this workspace. I mean, you may recognize this problem that I'm solving here, hopefully. You want an overview of everything you have online. I mean, you can go to this web service and you can have a look at all the workspaces one by one and check all the reports that are in there. But this thing will just list them all. which means I have a Power BI report on all my reports and all my workspaces. I could have done this also on all my data flows. I could have done it on all my data sets. I could have done it on all the refresh histories in all of my tenant. Well, look at this. It succeeded in getting the data now. And it will take a few seconds, and then you will see the result. So in this case, at the left of the screen, there are all my workspaces. And if I open a workspace, you will notice that there will be all the reports in there. And the nice thing I like about this one is that the web API also gives me back the address of the report. So this means I can just click on an hyperlink over there and this particular report will be opened. Yeah. So that's just one use case of this Power BI web API. I mean, I could list other ones. For instance, you might know about Power Automate. I mean, you don't have to be a programmer to interact with this Power BI API. I mean, you have this website. Yes, that's one thing. But you could also do this with Power Automate. And in Power Automate, you should be able to start a HTTP request. In this case, it's just getting the same command of getting all my workspaces from there. And in this case, you'll see a Power Automate flow, which at the end of this flow will just enter all this information rows in an Excel sheet. Yeah. So if you're looking for ways to make an inventory of all your assets on the Power BI service, you might consider using the Power BI API for something like this, because it can list up a lot of these things, as I've shown you before. In my case, I played with it with Python. So I will go back to my Python script again, just a few seconds, because I have some nice things that I'd like to show to you. For instance, you might want to list up the refresh history of a lot of data flows. So in this case, this particular Python script, which I'm eager to share with you if Rijts allows me. If I would start this particular Python script, you will see that there's a lot of interaction going on, and it will just run over all my workspaces. It will run over all my data sets, and it will then try to find out all the particular refresh schemes. And in this case, I said, okay, please save this to my hard disk. And you will see that in this particular window on my computer, those scripts and those JSON files will be just saved. Right, there it is. So this was one example, getting this information from the websites. Another thing might be that you would consider of exporting a complete report. I mean, maybe a report's online, and you want to download it just because you just want a copy of this particular file in the particular state it's on this moment. So if I would run this script now, it would just download a complete Power BI file from the service and save it on my hard disk. This week, there was another question coming to me, and people said, can you also save this as a PDF file, or can you also save this as a PNG file or whatever? It's all there. The Power BI web API gives you all those possibilities. And just to return to this website again, if you want to start with this particular trick, you should actually go to this Microsoft Learn website, and you will see all the things at the left of the screen listed and offering you a lot of possibilities. This week, I also discovered that Microsoft Fabric also has a Power BI or a Fabric API, which offers all the Fabric equivalents of what you're seeing on my screen now. So you can play around with capacities, with gateways, with anything you like in Fabric, and you do it as a programmer, so to speak. So, I mean, the motto might be, if you hate it, automate it. So if you are doing a lot of stuff manually in the service, you might consider finding out whether Power BI API might be a solution for your problem. Especially if you want to automate it, or if you want loops in it, then your Python script would be your best friend, I guess. Well, that's what I wanted to show you today. I hope I made you somehow eager to want to learn about Power BI Web API. Is there any question at this particular time that somebody wants to put to me?
Somebody's typing. I think, Annelies, you can unmute yourself as well. So as we've got a few minutes and you have a question.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I was a bit quick, so very good.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
We can fill up the time. It's no
yeah,
issue.
hopefully there's some question. That would be nice. Yeah. No questions?
They're blown away.
They're blown away. Yeah. Well, hopefully, or hopefully not. But what I like about it, I mean, my first use case for this was, and I'm eager to tell you, I mean, you can copy your reports online. So perhaps people have this use case of, we have one report, but you want to copy this report or keep it in sync in another workspace or whatever. That would be just a few lines of Python, and you could automate this. That was my first starting point, and that's why I wanted to learn more about this particular trick. And I must admit, I like it very much, but I don't know if other people like this as well. No questions at this moment?
Nope. But
Then
I can vouch for the fun of the APIs, because we've been playing around with the Fabric APIs.
Yeah.
Not only to get stuff or deploy stuff, but also to start pipelines, get status updates, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of things you can do with those APIs.
Yeah, data
I'm
flow
just here for the
refreshes,
beer
everything.
tokens.
Pardon?
I'm just here for the beer tokens.
Yeah. The only thing that I thought was a little bit annoying was if you want to do this with a service principal, then you need a lot of interaction with your Active Directory and your Azure things, and to get the right scopes in place, etc.
Yeah.
But in the end, it worked out fine. Yeah.
It's easy, by the way, for Fabric. I made stuff easier there. It's just Fabric admin permission, I think, and allowing SVNs to interact with Fabric, and then you're almost done. Which does make life easier.
Right. Okay. Just want to show you the Fabric one as well. I just want to show you the Fabric API as well. So I showed you the Power BI, but the Fabric is even more advanced. You have KQL, event stream, graph API, all the stuff also being able to be monitored or to being changed by a API endpoint.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well
Thank
done,
you.
Jan. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much as well.
Jo, I saw you
Next
already
one.
in the list of presenters. So feel free to take over the screen, start your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this is a nice bridge to my presentation, because when you are using the Fabric APIs or the Power BI APIs, why not also do it in Fabric? There's no reason to use your own laptop, you know? It's bad practice. So let's do this in a Fabric notebook.
You do realize you're not sharing your screen
Yes,
right now?
no, I have
okay.
3 screens open here, so I was like, I have to pick the right one to do the presentation on. So forgive me.
That's okay. Just a warning.
So this presentation is called Everything You Need to Know About Pure Python Fabric Notebooks. I am Jörg Braakman. I'm with in Spark at the moment. I've been doing T-SQL since 2005, Python since 2016. I'm 37. I have a small YouTube channel, and I'm on LinkedIn. Why this session? I've had to call a lot of APIs, and I need to vent. There are some bad ones out there that I'll show you. You can do a lot more than just calling APIs with Python, of course. But APIs is mostly what we what we use it for. Also, Python is amazing. It's Turing complete. You can do whatever you want, and hopefully, you will learn what works best for you. So, when you have a notebook, by default, it will be on PySpark. But since last year, you can switch to Python. And then you can switch to either Python 3.11 or 3.10. The difference here is not that big. And PySpark itself, the current Fabric runtime is 1.3, and it will accept basically any Python format between 3.8 and 3.11. Think new things in Python like the walrus operator, I believe are not supported yet. But why would you make the switch between Python and PySpark? Well, PySpark is scalable, so it goes up to terabytes of data. It is very performant for a lot of data, and it can do parallelism really well. Python, on the other hand, supports basically all Python libraries that you'd want to use. And it also has a great V-core to memory ratio, and therefore it's super cheap. The downsides on the left, PySpark, there's some overhead with creating a cluster. The cluster is expensive. State management is at times a challenge, and not every library is supported in Spark. For Python, though, it doesn't scale to terabytes. You can go pretty big, but if you're doing big data, you should use a tool for big data. Also, at the moment, writing to OneLink is slow, so take that in mind. I'll show you in the demo. And also in Python, of course, parallelism is hard, as it has always been. So what is a PySpark cluster then? Because you're also using Python in your PySpark cluster. So depending on your capacity, you can start up certain sizes of clusters. So the node size by default is medium, which is 8 vcores. And then depending on your SKU or your capacity units, you have a default max nodes on your cluster. So for an F32, you can have a maximum of 8 nodes, and each node is a VM, underneath the hood. And then each VM has 8 vcores, giving you a total of 64 vcores for an F32. Since capacity units are largely compute-based, you can imagine that spinning up 64 vcores might be very costly. On the other hand, Python notebooks by default are 2 vcores with 16 gigabytes of RAM. Even with business intelligence, a lot of you out there are not doing tons of tables that are bigger than 16 gigabytes. Your journal ledger will be bigger than 16 gigabytes, probably. Maybe the accounts too, but there are tons of tables out there, or CSVs that you need to grab from an FTP server or that you receive in the mail that Python can perfectly well handle for you. So in order to get the Python notebook to a bigger scale, you need to type in the %% configure command in the first cell of the notebook. And this is a magic command, as Microsoft calls it. And then if you type that and press a space at the end of configure, the Jupyter Notebook will autocomplete this very big dictionary for you. And then by default, it sets it to 4 vcores, which is a lot. But what you can also do here is automatically have a default lakehouse. And since the ID and the workspace ID are optional, you can just type in the name. And if your lakehouse names are equal across your development, test, acceptance, and production workspaces, it will just work and mount the right lakehouse that is in the current workspace. So you don't need to even look at the workspace ID. So going back to calling APIs, we all know our friend ChatGPT. I asked my friend ChatGPT to write me a basic request to get some data from a website, and this is what it came up with. And I gave this talk a year ago, and I just tested it out today, and it's still pretty much the same. So in the requests library is what you would use to call an API, or yeah, you can get, post, put, whatever to an API. It will give you the following. For example, we have this API, we want to send the payload, and it will type in requests.post. And then it will check if the status that comes back is okay, and give an error, raise an exception if it's not okay. And ChatGPT nowadays also gives this, so it will handle some exceptions for you. But of course, it's still an AI, and it's still not very good. I do really like, though, that nowadays it says here on the final note, for high throughput or async workloads, consider HTTPX or async.io HTTP, which is what you probably should be doing if you're calling APIs. So why is this? It works, of course, but why is it bad? The request.get method, it rebuilds the connection to the server every time. And that takes about 200 milliseconds, depending on where the server is. So if you have to call an API and get a list of, let's say, invoices, and it says you have to gather 5,000 invoices, and you're using this code, you're having this overhead of having to rebuild that connection to the server each time you do those requests. And the more requests you do, the bigger this overhead gets. Another thing you can run into is the 429 error. And so before Fabric, we had Synapse, and on Synapse there were no Python notebooks. We only had the PySpark notebooks. And you would run into the 429 error a lot if you were using requests or a similar library. The other thing you can do with a PySpark cluster is make your your supplier mad by making their service unavailable. And then taking their server offline, because you're using 64 vCores to make thousands of requests in a couple of seconds. So what can we do? So I get this question, why are you using a notebook in the first place? We have data flows, we have pipelines, and it was mainly because of incompatible APIs. In the Netherlands, we have a competitor to Amazon.com, Bol.com, and they did have documentation, but they wanted you to put the version number and the application type in the content type. And for the copy activity in Data Factory, Synapse, and Fabric, you cannot change the content type. The content type has to be application/JSON. So since the client of mine really wanted to get their retail orders from Bol, I had to use a notebook. Luckily, in 2025, Bol.com finally changed this, and now you can use a regular, normal content type, thankfully. So, other things you can run into in the wild is this. Where a server will give you back a 200 and then give you a JSON with the actual error in it. This has also happened to me, where I had a different client, and this client had two APIs that were talking to each other. And the final API would actually talk to a database, and we were not giving database access. We had to go through an API that called another API that called the database. So anytime the first API would always give a 200 because it worked perfectly, and then the second API would give a bad request or some other timeout error or 429. So here's some example code. There's this website where you can play around with APIs, typicode.com, and you can get some comments there. And let's start up this in PySpark. Luckily nowadays in Fabric, the startup time should be 10 seconds. These are lies, by the way. Session started in 5 seconds. Always takes longer than Microsoft claims it does. So right now I'm getting 50 comments from the website, and I'm appending it to a list. And that takes about 3 seconds. That means that every request itself takes about 57 seconds. And then comes the non-garbage version of what ChatGPT gave us. We're using a session object now. And the session object holds the connection to the server. That means we go down from 60 to 10 milliseconds. Now, if you have to call an API thousands of times, this will save you a lot of time, patience, and compute. Apparently I have an error in here. So then we have asynchronous for calling APIs. And with the asynchronous mode, you can start multiple threads. This is not about async.io. I will not fully tell you. You can look at the graph. You can see that we're sending 2 requests to the server at the same time, and we can receive it back in any order. And in PySpark, there are some errors that you can get into, because PySpark itself here is already running with async.io. So what you need to do is you need to nest the session that supports your browser, basically. So we're nesting async.io itself, and then we can run really quick. And you can see that we go down to 4 milliseconds. So going down from 60 to 10, and then from 10 to 4 milliseconds, huge time savings. For the client that I had to figure this all out for, I had to do 14 million requests each day. So you can imagine that getting it down from 60 to 4 was an amazing time saver and cost saver. Yeah, so a Spark cluster has a driver and then a number of nodes. And if you're just using it as a Python machine, you're going to see a really low efficiency of 1.48 because it's measuring efficiency there in how well you are using the nodes. And if you are not delegating data from a data frame to the nodes, you're doing everything on the driver node. So you're also only using the 8 vcores of the driver node and not like the 7 other nodes that you also have access to. So it's incredibly inefficient. So did I not import that correctly? Yeah, I skipped a cell. What it comes down to, though, is that PySpark does not play well with asynchronous requests. So you get a very big stack trace, which is what I said earlier. Like you're going through these stack traces is not for the average person. It comes down to, though, that running stuff through the UDF, so you can make a user-defined function, but the user-defined function cannot be asynchronous. So you have to do the requests synchronous, and then you lose a whole bunch of efficiency. So the end node is that use async IO and just use it on a Python notebook if you're calling APIs. If you're reading CSVs that are small, let's say smaller than 250 megabytes, which is like the optimal size for PySpark clusters, just use Python notebooks and you'll be fine. You can also do some data analysis with the Python notebooks. If I switch to the Python right now, you can see that the data wrangler is still available. So if you're a fan of data wrangler, it still works on Python notebooks. You can open 16 gigabyte data frames. That's a lot. I think that's my time also. So are there any questions?
It's been quiet in chat. I think they've been riveted to your session, Jor.
Okay.
So as I've put in the chat before, if you have any questions, put them in chat because I've created a very tight schedule. And Juliana is up next.
Hi,
Should be.
I'm here.
Thank you.
I'm going to apologize. I have a chest infection, but I'm fine. I'll be able to speak. So just apologize for my voice.
All right, that's okay.
Share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
So, thanks a lot for everybody who is joining my session, Accessibility Considerations in Power BI, Designing for Everyone. Just before we jump into the content, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Juliana Smith. My background is actually physical oceanography. So I started my career in data science and ocean research. And since 2020, I have specialized in Power BI and user interface design. For the past 2 years, I have deep dived into WCAG and digital accessibility. I have a blog called Smart Frames UI and a YouTube channel, Accessible BI, where I share content on Power BI and accessible design. So today, this is going to be like a 20-minute session. So we're going to talk very briefly about digital accessibility and then about the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is known for short as WCAG, and the POL principles, and then how we can translate WCAG into dashboard design, some practical tips, and then how we can get started with the framework CRAP, and then we wrap up the session. So globally, over 1 billion people, or about 15% of the population, live with some form of disability. And digital accessibility aims to make websites, apps, and other digital experiences usable for everyone, regardless of their abilities, disabilities, and circumstances. And this means that all users should be able to perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with digital interfaces without facing any barriers. And by making digital products accessible, we ensure access to all. So all the individuals with disabilities or not, they will be able to access important information and services. We also promote inclusivity because we're giving equal opportunities for everybody in society. It also help us with legal compliance, because there are some legal requirements around digital accessibility worldwide, so that will reduce the risk of lawsuits. And finally, enhance user experience. So digital accessibility enhances user experience for everyone, making interfaces more intuitive and easy to navigate. So let's talk about now the Web Content Accessibility Guideline and the core principles. So WCAG, which is a Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, are globally recognized standards designed to make digital content accessible to people with disabilities. And it was developed by the World Wide Web Consortium. The current version that is in use is WCAG 2.2, that has been used since October 2023, although the draft for WCAG 3.0 is already available. On this most recent version, there are 13 guidelines across 4 different principles that are known as POUR, and there are in total 87 success criteria. But not all the success criteria are applicable to Power BI. And there are also 3 levels of compliance, which are level A, AA, and AAA. In terms of core principles, we have first P for perceivable, which means that the users can recognize and use the services or tools through one or more of their senses. O is for operable, but the user interface components and navigation must be operable using various input methods, and that will include keyboard. We have U for understandable, where digital content and interfaces are easy to read. They are predictable in behavior and also designed to help the users to avoid and recover from errors. And finally, R for robust, where the content must be robust enough to be interpreted in a reliable way by assistive technologies, such as screen readers. As I mentioned, WCAG defines 3 levels of compliance, which are levels of accessibility that the digital content should meet. Level A is the most basic, is suitable for some users, but not all. Level AA addresses the most common barriers for users and aims to make the content accessible to a wider range of people. And level AAA addresses the highest level of accessibility, providing the most inclusive experience for all users, including those with significant disabilities. Level AA is the most commonly legally mandated, so all the regulations, most of them require level of compliance AA, including the European Union and here in the UK. And that is because it addresses a wide range of accessibility needs, while it's also still practical to implement. Now let's have a look how we can translate the WCAG into dashboard design. So first, for the principal perceivable, that means that our report and dashboard should be easy to see and to read. So we should use clear text, strong color contrast, and as alternative text for non-text elements, so that everybody, including those users who rely on screen readers, can access information. In terms of making our reports operable, that means that our users should be able to navigate and interact with the dashboards using keyboard or assistive technology. So we have to make sure that all the elements are compatible with navigation by keyboard, and there is no navigation tab. And it's also very important to have the correct tab order. We're going to talk about it. To make our reports understandable, that means that the layout and the behavior should be predictable and easy to follow. So we should use plain language, consistent iconography, for example, and additional information so the users don't get stuck and confused. And finally, in terms of making our reports robust, there is some limitation, but that means that we should at least aim to have reports that are compatible across devices. Of course, you should understand if there is a need for mobile view, for example, because it will require some additional effort. We also have to test across browsers and make sure they works well with compatible with assistive technologies. And we also have to have well-structured visuals. They have clear labels, and they can be tested in terms of functionality in different environments. So there was a lot that I talked through. What does that mean? What kind of actual practical tips can we take on board? So first, let's talk about something that I think is quite critical, which is color contrast between whatever is types of text or even the colors used on the visualizations against the background. So high contrast between the foreground and the background will significantly improve readability. And there are, if you're not sure what is a good contrast, we can use the WCAG thresholds. So we should try to aim for at least level AA. So if you have body text, the contrast ratio should be of 4:1. Large text, which is above 18 points, or if in bold, above 40, 3:1. And you also need some color contrast for non-text elements, and that includes icons and the colors that we use in the visualization. So it's very common to see whenever I scroll through LinkedIn and data visualization challenges, I see a lot of, like on the top example, this one here, and that you may think it's sleek, but it's not great in terms of accessibility. As well, if your user is using in a computer, the settings are not great, or you have poor resolution, bad lighting, everything will impact your user experience. Next is the use of clear fonts. So think about legibility, which is the easy, which we can understand individual letters, and the words can be distinguished and read. And there are two main font families. So we have serif, which is a type of font that includes decorative strokes at the end of the letters. And we have sans serif, which is modern modern style and clean, and it doesn't have these small projecting lines called serifs. And sans serif fonts are better for legibility and accessibility because of the clean and simple shapes. Although we have to be careful, because even within the sans serif family, there are some fonts that character differentiation is not great. So I have here a comparison between Verdana and Arial, and you can see how the capital I and lowercase l with Arial, they look the same. So that can cause a lot of confusion. In terms of font size, Power BI allows us to use font size 8, I think, which we should definitely not use. I think that larger text will reduce eye strain and help our users to quickly recognize words. So this is a kind of an example of how you can play with different font size that will help you to build a hierarchy as well. Just make sure that you aim for at least 12 points, and that has to be increased if you increase your canvas size. Something else that is very important is consistency. So visual elements, interactions, and data representation should follow a predictable and uniform pattern across all the views and different reports. So if you see here, I have 3 different pages. The way that you navigate from one page to another, user filters, the colors selected for forecast and actual, they are consistent across the reports, as well as iconography. Everything is consistent. That means that your user will spend less time trying to figure out how to use a report to actually using it. So predictable behavior means that it's going to have an easy navigation and effective use. Now it's something that I think it's very difficult unless you don't rely on your mouse. So there are a lot of people who don't use a mouse when they're working on a computer. A lot of people, regardless of disabilities, they like to use the keyboard. And even if you have a great report, if you start navigating a report this way, right, it's not in the correct order. So these will be very, very frustrating. And we have to make sure that those users who will use the keyboard will have a good experience. And it is frustrating if you can see what you're doing. Now imagine if you cannot see the screen. For example, if you have a screen reader, the screen reader will pick the information in the incorrect order, but you cannot see the screen, so you're going to have difficulties to work with this report. So that's why we have to make sure that tab order is really important. So tab order is the sequence in which the users navigate through the reports using the tab key. So it should match the way that the users are intended to consume the report. So for example, in this example we have here, starting from the title, and then we go to the slicer, KPI cards. We have then the decomposition tree, bar chart, bottom chart with a line chart, and then a button for the next page. So it's following the correct order, and we have to manually check and adjust if needed on the selection pane under tab order. Now I mentioned about screen readers. Screen readers, I think is the most difficult to explain the importance, because I know very few people who actually use screen readers. But to make sure that these screen readers are effective, because in Power BI they are compatible by default, but we have to make sure that we add alternative text, and that will provide meaningful descriptions for images, and that will help those users who rely on screen readers to be able to access information. So there are different ways you can add alternative text. You can type the alternative text in the box in the format pane. There is a limit for 250 characters, and also means that you have to come back every month to update if the data is changing. Alternatively, we can use DAX. So there is an example for the same content, but making it a bit more dynamic. So all the change in the data will reflect on the alternative text, and you don't have the need to come back every month. Doing that way as well, there is no limit in terms of character count. It can be a bit heavy on DAX, but because you already create a lot of the calculations, it's just a matter of combining with the DAX strings. And then bring us to the use of tooltips and accessible alternatives. So tooltips are really good to add context without adding clutter. So the option of hovering over, for example, an information button to understand if you have any doubts about how to use the report or how to interact with it. We just have to be careful, because they're not great in terms of compatibility with screen readers, but we can add alternative text. So on the button, you can go as well on the format pane and add the same alternative text, the same information that was on the hover over option, the tooltip. So you make sure that everybody accesses important information. And it may feel that it's quite overwhelming to get started. I don't know, how can I start implementing my design process without feeling that getting overwhelmed? And there is a really good framework to use, and I'm sure that everybody will remember, which is the CRAP, and makes up a word that you're not going to forget it. So what is this framework? So these support, it stands for, the C is for contrast, and then we have R for repetition, A for alignment, and P for proximity. And it supports accessibility because it embeds clarity and structure into visual communication from the outset. So when we apply contrast, we ensure that the key elements stand out, and that will aid the users to quickly understand what is the main information. For repetition, we reinforce consistency, helping the users to navigate and understand the content more intuitively. Then we have A for alignment, which creates a logical flow, reducing cognitive load and improving readability. And it will be especially important for screen readers as well. And then finally, we have proximity, which means that we're grouping related items together, making relationship between elements clearer and also will enhance comprehension. So designing with thinking about CRIP will not only improve the aesthetic of your report, but also lays a very strong foundation for inclusive and user-friendly experiences. So to wrap up this session, designing for accessibility ensures that all users can effectively interact with Power BI reports. In my experience, quite a few people don't raise their hands up to say that they can't see the contrast or they have some kind of difficulties. It happened for me. What was eye-opening was when I had a user, he was colorblind and I didn't know. And all my charts were using red, amber, and green. And that was really eye-opening because he only told me 6 months down the line. Familiarity with WCAG standards is crucial for ensuring compliance and also enhancing usability for diverse audiences. And applying these practical techniques for creating inclusive reports will lead to better engagement and understanding for all users. There is some content. I have a couple of videos on YouTube on setting the tab order and trying to find like the right color contrast ratio, what tools you can use to do that. They're free. But there is also a very good session that's recorded from Valerie Junk. She talked through the Power BI built-in accessibility features. And Elena Drakulevska blog, Moon Story, she posted a Power BI accessibility checklist that I think is worth going through. That's it for me. Thank you very much. Now, I just wonder if anyone has any question.
Thanks so much, Julia. I don't think anybody noticed you had a chest infection or anything. It was perfectly audible and well presented.
Thank you.
Halfway through the session, I asked a question if there's a way how we can determine the contrast ratio, and you added it nicely on the penultimate slide. So my question was answered.
Yeah, there is these if you go to this YouTube video, I go through the tools you have available online, but the Adobe has got a contrast checker and a color blinding simulation that you can use for free. Just need the hex code.
Very cool. Thank you so much. With that, if there are any other questions, please put them in chat, because next up is Magnus. It's just 10 minutes before he's reaching his deadline.
Yeah, great. I mean, let's can we have just chill conversation for 1 minute, and I'll just get everything up on the screen. I did count on those 10 minutes, but I do think we can start early if I just get a single minute.
Was it Matthias or me? I thought you said Magnus.
Yes, it's Magnus. Matthias, you're up in 10 minutes. Relax.
Nice. Sorry, Magnus.
No worries. That could have given me the time to dig out my presentation, but I didn't spend it on that. So there we go.
You're adding to your pressure.
So it should load. And maybe now you see it. Cool. So welcome to 10 minutes before deadline, a procrastinator's guide to containers and DBA tools. Before I start, I just want to thank for the previous presentation. So I'll spend just 1 minute bragging about how I was co-funding and taking part of a project called Funka.nu, which was basically working with accessibility for websites, for government websites and city and county websites in Sweden. We laid out the groundwork for WCAG. So it's a good segue. Anyway, let's dig into the presentation, if I can switch slides. We have a situation which works like it's 3:50 p.m. on a Friday. I'm on my way from the office, sort of. Well, I'm actually preparing food for guests who will arrive. And then my boss calls and says, hey, maybe you forgot to post the details to me or send me the details about the new SQL instances you were going to build before today. And yeah, that's basically every Friday for me. I realize 10 minutes before I have to go home that, oh, I had something that I promised someone I should finish today. Okay. So I still have 10 minutes before the first guests arrive. So, I mean, there's not much we should do. We should create 2 SQL instances. We should set up automated backup tests. So 10 minutes is plenty of time, right? So I start making a plan in my head. Before that, let's skip this slide. I'm not interesting. My name is Magnus. That's all you need to know. So we build a plan. I build a plan in my head. We need 2 SQL instances. That's going to take 30 seconds. We need to create credentials in SQL Server for our storage accounts. That might require 60 seconds because we need to figure out the SAS tokens and stuff, see where we store them. And we need to restore the database 60 seconds. So let's just pretend I have pure storage and everything is super fast, and then 60 seconds is okay for a restore. And then I need to back up that database and run the automated restore test. So we should have plenty of time to build that solution, right? And the way I will do it in the demo is I will use containers to create SQL instances. If you didn't use containers, I think, at least I was, the first time I saw someone create a SQL instance in a container, it blew my mind because it's super fast and it's the only thing I use these days. I didn't install the SQL instance on any of my laptops for the past probably 5 years or something. And we will use DB8 Tools PowerShell module to do the automated backups and actually the original restores as well. If you have questions about containers and the container internals, please ask Andrew Prusky, who's also on the call, because he can tell you much more than I can about it. So let's switch to another window, which is PowerShell. Window and PowerShell. So question, can you see PowerShell?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So I said we would spend 30 seconds on creating 2 SQL instances, and I'm going to do that with the command podman. If you use Docker Desktop, podman is going to be Docker instead of podman. Otherwise, everything is just the same. So it's just which container tool you are using. And I'm going to create something. And as I prepared, I actually have it in my history. So I'm going to create an instance that I call SQL test. So the name of the container is SQL test. I'm going to map the port 1402 on my computer to port 1433 inside the container. I'm going to accept the end user license agreement, and I'm going to set an SA password. You need to set an SA password, otherwise the container won't start. The first thing you should do if you're going to use it for anything else than a 10-minute demo is to change the SA password inside the container. So, and then I create a podman or Docker volume, which I mount or map to var of MS-SQL inside the container. This is where SQL Server stores stuff like logs and data files and so on. And then I'm going to use the container image mcr.microsoft.com MS-SQL Server latest. So this will give me a SQL Server 2025 image. So I hit create and it's done. So it's 1 second to create it once I dig the command up. And I said I was going to create 2. So let's do SQL dev as well. And we put that on port 1401. And we're just going to change to another Docker volume. And there we have our second SQL Server installed and ready. So let's start it. Podman start SQL dev. Podman start SQL test. and now they are running. And to check how far they are with the startup, we do podman log SQL test. And we see that the TempDB database has 8 data files. If I scroll up a little bit, I will see that the broker, SQL Server broker has started, which means that SQL Server is actually running. So now I can go ahead and use it. And to do that, I'm first going to create a PowerShell credential object because we will use SQL login. You can get your container to do Windows authentication, but that requires creating key tabs and stuff, and we don't have time for that. So let's do SQL authentication. And of course, best practice is to always use the SA account, right? So we'll do that. And using those credentials, we can create a SQL Server credential inside our containers. And what that will do is to authenticate from our SQL Server container to our storage account in Azure. So I have my Transmocopter PS demo blob core Windows Net /backups, and I have a shared access token, which you should probably not put in clear text like this, but hey, it's a demo. Normally, you would probably create this thingy in a pipeline, and you would get that secret from some key vault or something. But the principle is the same. So we have that credential created on our first SQL server, and we'll create it on the second one as well. So now these SQL servers can talk to our storage account, and we're ready to do a restore of the database, which in this case is AdventureWorks 2025. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to copy paste the code. So we will use the DBA tools PowerShell module. You install it with install module DBA tools. And it has a function called restore DBA database. We give it the SQL instance, so localhost port 1402. We send in the SQL credential that we just created with the SA and the password for the SA. We give a database name, so we want to create AdventureWorks 2025 database. Destination data directory and destination log directory, and then the path to the backup file. So that's all. And in the interest of time, I should have started the restore while I talked you through it, but I'm an amateur, so I didn't. So we get the result. We see that this was the actual SQL that DBA tools ran, restore database, etc. And the database is up and running. So we said we were going to do restore tests. So to do that, we need to have a backup that is created on one of our containers, and then we're going to do the restore test on the other one. So we'll do backup DBA database, works pretty much the same. The big difference is, oh, fantastic. It exists, so I'm going to have to do with format. Forgot that. So we give it the Azure base URL instead of a path. If you do a backup to a normal file share or disk, you will use path instead of Azure or Azure base URL. Otherwise, they work pretty much the same. So we create the backup. And now to something that if you are a DBA or at least somehow responsible for disaster recovery, availability, or whatever of your databases, you probably want to do restore tests. So imagine that I just did a backup from production and I want to test if the production backups are okay. I would use also DBA tools, and I would run the command test DBA last backup. I get the backup information from the instance I just created the backups from. And I give it a destination, which is the SQL server where I want to test my backups. And I just give the destination credentials, and I run the command. And what this will do is restore every single database, run dbcc check db on the database, and throw the database away if everything is okay. So in 10 minutes, we have created 2 SQL servers. We have restored a database. We have backed up the database, and then we did a full backup test or restore test of not just the user database, but also the system databases. And I have no idea how I am on time. If anyone has any questions and if there is time for them, now is the time.
Very
Love
nicely
this.
done, Magnus.
It's like that old Midnight Oil song, "How do we DR when our steaks are burning?" or something like that. I believe
Yeah.
that's how the lyrics were.
That's the song.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone wrote 1 second wow in the comments. That was you, right? So, and
Yep.
that's my feeling too. I mean, maybe these days everyone uses containers, but when I meet people, even developers who I think would be a bit more tech savvy than the average person, they don't really use it much unless they are deploying their code to a container platform. But I mean, everyone's talking about application as a service and so on, but we're still using old Windows servers in a server room in the basement. Many of our clients do, at least.
Oh yeah. So because we're running a little bit late, not really a lot, but let's try and keep this pace going. Matthias, this time it is you.
Nice, good to see you all, and maybe I can help correct the time because I don't have like a fixed. As I said, I'm not bringing in PowerPoints. I'm just bringing my own passion for using these modern vibe coding tools to do stuff for data. And I don't know if everyone here knows what vibe coding is, but it's this new almost embarrassing way to code where you don't write a single code yourself, but you just rely on AI to do everything for you. And you can probably expect that or anticipate that the code may be messy, that it may not be out of the box secure. You still need to have that competence to help do the right stuff, and it's not production grade. But it's really, really, really cool for making prototypes, and it's really cool for making like personal tools for yourself or for your team, or even a prototype that could evolve into an actual product you could spread out into a whole enterprise. I have a few examples that I've developed, and I just hope to inspire some of you. I don't expect to teach you much. I just want to show what can be done and maybe help create that spark for anyone else than me that, oh, maybe we can actually do stuff with these tools. And I really love that Daniel is here with me because one of the things that I vibe coded is actually using the live feed from Call for Days data speakers in its application. So yeah, so I look forward to showing that. So how about we just start there? This may be more relevant for speakers than everybody else, but I think as just to show the power of what we can do, it's quite interesting. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm using this platform that is non-Microsoft, unfortunately. It's called Lovable. I like how easy it is to make good UI in it. That's why I'm using it. We could as well have been using GitHub Copilot or Claude or some other tool. This is just one of many tools. But yeah, I personally like it. So I've made this tool that is an event follow-up. When I have to plan all these tons of speaking engagements and call for speakers and submissions and all of that, it can very quickly become overwhelming. So I've made a tool for that. Let's try to open it. Actually, I would like to open it in a new tab. There you go. So this is created without me writing a single line of code. You can see here, this is the conversation with an AI for many, 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 many messages, like over actually a bunch of time, just talking about the application, reshaping it, making some changes, creating like the security foundation and all of that stuff happening through chat instead of through me coding. So it's a new way of thinking, and it's a new kind of way of approaching this where you're kind of going at it more in a product way or product management way instead of like the tech way. Anyway, having done all that, this is kind of the output. This is my speaker assistant, and I'm actually using it. And I love it. It's so nice. So the first thing I want to point out is I have a list of my to-dos. This is all the open call for speakers prioritized or like sorted by how close to the deadline they are. So I can see, oh, I should actually get into SQL bits here. I can go and I can actually click view and it opens the sessionized link for me. That's cool. But then I've done some of these may be accepted. For example, the one we're speaking at here, that was accepted today. So I have here that it's reached this accepted status in my list. It's moved to my accepted stage, which opens up this travel planning where I can go in and log my attendees, my budget. I can add departure and return days. I can even specify hotel and airline so I don't forget these details when I'm on the travel. And which I think is really neat. I can actually use AI here, click, and it helps me check the country I'm traveling to and come up with a visa or like a travel document recommendation, whether I should get a visa or an ESTA or something like that. And it kind of gives me that it's not required for this event because this one was online. Yeah. All right. So there's that. I can do my travel planning and have it logged. What I can also do is, of course, after we're done, I could go and register how many people are in it, like 15 for now or something like that. And that's all good. So that's one thing. I mean, keeping tab on all these details. So I mentioned this synchronization with Daniel's amazing site. So I have this sync button. It will do it automatically at a schedule, but I can also click it to get the latest events. And as you can see here, there's actually 5 new events in my tab. When I click that, it opens up in like a Tinder dating app style. I have to swipe left and right. So data toboggan, is that something I want to submit to? I can see there's 2 days left on the CFP. We have a deadline here. It's a relevant event for me. Yes, I want to submit to that one. Brisbane, sorry, but I'm not going to be traveling to Australia in January or in February. So that's a no. And same for the US, that's a no. Now these events were added to my to-do list and the other one was removed, so I don't have to care about them anymore. So a little extra sparky detail is the app also gives me a calendar feed. So now I have a calendar feed that puts these deadlines for the call for speakers in my actual calendar. So I get a reminder on the day that SQL Bits is today. Go submit. So that was one example for how it helps me do all these speaking stuff better. So how about we stay on that same page and look at my second little tool, because I also made a little voice task buddy, which honestly is more for fun. This will help me pack when I have to travel. So this is a basic to-do list, which helps me pack. And I'm not sure the sound thing here will work, but let's try. I can turn on this thing. It should activate. Can you hear the AI voice, or is it just? Okay, so there's an AI voice now asking me stuff, and I can tell it like, please note that I packed my belt and my pants. So that was it. Unfortunately, you couldn't hear the AI, but it was going like, what do you need me to help you get your stuff packed? This means that I can put this app in my ear. I can put my phone down. I can actually go and pack my luggage and have the AI kind of guide me through what I need to put into my suitcase when I'm packing. Another way that I've kind of made my life a little bit easier with AI. So that was personal stuff. Let's move on to, I have so many examples. So let's pick one that is relevant to what we do with Fabric or Power BI. So I also have the job monitor. So all of these apps, I actually skipped a bit just to make it easier for you guys to follow along. But actually all of them has some sort of user login. So they actually work for multiple users. So here I have to sign in with my Microsoft. I'm picking my Microsoft account. and it's going through my token with my entry ID and actually fetching these details in real time. Nothing is hard coded. Nothing is made to be just a demo. There's actually no backend in this solution. Everything is fetched real time when I'm logging in. So I have a list of everything in Fabric, when it was running, what the status was, if there's any problems, error details. I can go a schedule, see that like the timeline and heat map of what on certain dates do we have a pattern and when things were failing and all of these things. This is something that can help me kind of get a quick at a glance overview of my own tenant, but it's actually built as a tool to enable me to also onboard another organization so I can kind of monitor someone else on their behalf. So it's kind of a flexible tool. Then I have something which is actually saving me some money or potential money. So this is my Azure integration, where it's the same principle. I need to log in. I need to log in. Connect to Azure, I need to log in. Using that token, it's getting details for me. I can see stuff like my API or my settings of my Fabric tenant, how they're set up. I can see my workspaces, my objects, and those are not really what I'm using the most, but this one, capacity, is the interesting one. So in my capacities, I will see my actual capacities. And as you see now, I actually forgot to turn down my F16 SKU that I used earlier today. So that's quite lucky, because that means I can now go and scale this down with a single click, and that's it. But if I forgot to do this, luckily I also implemented an auto scheduler and a scheduler where I can go in and add a schedule. For example, say I want to target an F2 SKU and I want to schedule that every day at 6 p.m. It's going to turn down to an F2. So I never forget to do this again. And I can create the schedule and boom, now this app will run in the background every day and help scale down my capacity if I ever forget it. So 4 tools that makes my life easier and also in some ways could make my clients' life easier. And all of these are created without me writing a single line of code. It's running through a proper backend with proper compute. It has AI integration and all of those things. So so that was kind of my inspirational little talk about what we can actually do with these kind of stuff. I'm very open to questions. I know I condensed this, so we actually caught up on time. I do have more stuff to show if we have extra time. So let's just take it how we want to.
Well, looking at the schedule, we're at time. But I think this is one that deserves a full session length explanation. Because there's a lot of stuff to learn here and to see here. It's impressive. And on the other hand, thank you so much for dropping in at the last minute when somebody dropped out this morning. That's very cool that you were able to hop in at the last moment.
No, thank you. You're welcome. It was nice.
All right.
So I saw someone raising their hand. We shouldn't spend the time here, but everyone are welcome to reach out to me and write me directly if you have a question or if this spark an interest or something. Just
drop it in the chat right now so we can get Andrew going because he's eager to start. I can see.
Yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen. So now for something completely different. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this very brief introduction to SQL Server and something called KubeVirt. What could possibly go wrong? My name is Andrew Pruski. I'm a Principal Field Solutions Architect at Pure Storage. My contact details are on the slide there. If you have any questions after this, along the lines of what on earth are you talking about, please feel free to reach out because I am always willing to talk about this stuff. So let's talk about KubeVirt. What is KubeVirt? Now, the definition there is from the KubeVirt website, but essentially what KubeVirt allows us to do is deploy virtual machines to Kubernetes. Okay, I'll just let that sink in. However, the reason this has come about is I've actually been asked about KubeVirt a few times in my day-to-day job, purely for a fact that there's a different platform to run VMs since Broadcom did you-know-what to VMware. So other people are out there looking for platforms to run SQL Server on other than VMware, and KubeVirt has come up time and time again, really. But why would you want to run SQL Server in KubeVirt? Remember, we have the ability to run SQL Server in containers, as Magnus showed earlier. We can run it in Kubernetes as what's known as a stateful set. Now, okay, the problems perceived with that are it is SQL Server on Linux. SQL Server on Windows containers do exist, but they are completely unsupported by Microsoft. So if you want to run SQL Server in Kubernetes, you run SQL Server on Linux. Now, it's pretty much feature parity, but it's not all there yet. Things like SQL Server agent jobs, there's certain things that you can't do, for instance. Also, I don't know about you, but when I first started working with SQL Server on Linux, I was terrified of the OS. I didn't know what I was doing in Linux OS. I was going to do something terribly bad at some point. So this gives us a known environment where we can deploy SQL Server. All the features are available. Our existing monitoring tools, we just point what we have at it and get all the OS counters that we want from it. And it provides a lift and shift ability where we can just take our existing VMs and move it into KubeVirt. So there's a load of components here. We've got an API that we can connect to, Virt controller, control plane components that reconciles VMs, VMI objects, a Virt handler, node level component for actually responsible for running the VM itself, and a Virt operator which manages KubeVirt itself. I don't want to spend too much time talking about these. We'll have a quick look at the architecture, and then we'll jump into a lab, and we'll actually have a look at a VM running SQL Server in KubeVirt. So here's the architecture. Here we go. So we have a Kubernetes component. We can see the Kubernetes components in the white boxes there, the API server, kubelet, pods, daemons, and all this. And then we have Virt controller and Virt API on the cluster components, so the control plane components. And then we have the node components, the Virt handler, which handles spinning up and managing VMs. And then we have the Virt launcher, which is running the virtualization processes underneath, lib, virtd, and qmeu. This is the actual VM itself running in Kubernetes. So, you're all with me? Cool. Let's go and have a look at it running. By the way, if you have any questions, just shout out. Like, please don't do things like what mental home have you escaped from, stuff like that. Let's keep it constructive, shall we? I know this is a bit bonkers. Right. The first thing is that for a detailed run through of setting up KubeVirt and SQL Server, I wrote a blog about this very recently of running through the entire process of getting this done. But basically what you need is you need a Kubernetes cluster, obviously, a storage provider, which could be anything, as long as you can dynamically provision things like persistent volumes from your persistent volume claims. And then you are pretty much good to go. And by the way, for this demo, I am using a one node compressed cluster. Now, this is because I wanted to run on physical nodes, a physical machine with Kubernetes. Because otherwise, if you think about it, I'm going to be running SQL Server in a Windows VM on a Linux VM somewhere in the cloud. And that is just nested virtualization is going to be a pain. So no. So I could only get my hands on one physical box after begging, pleading, crying, bargaining, and all that jazz. I got hands on this thing. So as you can see, it is both a worker plane, a worker node, and a control plane node. It was known as a compressed cluster. This is fine for demos. Don't do this in real life because it'll be an absolute disaster. So let's go and have a look at what we're running. So we've got a whole bunch of namespaces here. We've got the KubeVirt namespace. I've got a Portworx namespace. This is my storage provider. Portworx is a product by Pure Storage. I work for Pure Storage. I'm going to use it. I get my free license. And we have something cool up here called CDI, Container Data Importer. This contains all the objects that allows us to do really interesting things, like take a Windows ISO or a SQL Server ISO and upload it to a Kubernetes cluster in the form of a persistent volume. And we can then attach those volumes to a virtual machine, install Windows, install SQL Server. Cool. So I've got my storage classes provisioned by my storage provider. And we got our persistent volumes. There's a whole bunch of them there, but the main ones we want to have a look at here are SQL Server 2022 PVC, This is holding my ISO for SQL Server. And Windows 2025 PVC. This is holding my Windows 2025 ISO. Cool, I've got a whole bunch of other ones there. Because corresponding persistent volume claims that are actually attached to the VM. We don't reference persistent volumes directly. We reference persistent volume claims. It gives us a level of abstraction. Because remember, Kubernetes is supposed to be infrastructure agnostic. Let's have a look at all the KubeVirt objects, and we've got the whole bunch of them in there. So we come up here, we've got our controller, we've got our handler, we've got our operator, we've got our API, all there, all running, all that jazz. Now, when we deploy, we basically the same. If you ever worked with Kubernetes, you worked with things like manifests, YAML files, and we build things with YAML files. And one of the first thing you build with KubeVirt is a virtual machine. And we can see here, it is running. But we have a level of abstraction here. So we have our virtual machine, which defines our desired state of our virtual machine. And then we have a virtual machine instance, which is a running instance, a running state of our virtual machine. From there, we then have a pod, a virtual launcher pod. And this is our actual VM. This is what's running the QEM process that gives us our virtual machine within Kubernetes. And then we could do things like deploy services. So I've deployed a couple of services here for RDP 3389, and of course our one and only favorite 1433 SQL Server port. Now I'm using no port services here because I didn't want to go into all the things of having to deploy load balancers or things like MetalLB. Just using no ports built into Kubernetes makes things a little bit simpler. Okay, so the big question here is, what is the performance like? So I've got if we come back and have a look at the pods, I have SQL Server running as a stateful set, SQL Server 2022 on Linux running as a stateful set directly in Kubernetes, and I have SQL Server running in my VM. And the performance testing that we did when I first did this was not great. We're using HammerDB, so we're running a TPCC workload against both instances, and I was getting about 38% transactions per minute of that stateful set. Not great. But I'm being a bit unfair to KubeVirt here because I didn't really know what I was doing. But let's kick off a workload. Just using HammerDB. Let's run it off. There we go. And we could jump and have a look at our virtual machine. And we can see we've got some transactions coming here, and it's just a normal virtual machine at this point. We've got our SQL Server Configuration Manager. I've got performance counters up where I can see, okay, processor time's about 84. I'm not really stressing it. One thing I noticed, though, when I first did my testing was that my CPU privilege time was through the roof. It was about 80% of the overall processor time, which points to the fact that Andrew didn't know what he was doing. He hadn't configured his drivers wrong. Basically, the server was spending all its time in kernel trying to sort things out because Andrew doesn't know what he's doing. So I went ahead and started making some configuration changes to that VM. And I know I'm a bit short on time. What we'll do is we'll have a quick look at what we have. And this YAML became a bit of a monster after a while. But the main ones here that I found was if we have a look at, if we get rid of all the noise, the main one is these features, and specifically this Hyper-V flag here, which does it enables Hyper-V enlightenment features for Windows guests. Essentially, it tricks the VM to thinking it's running in Hyper-V. And then we did some other things, and we got some resource jazz down here, like Andrew. Let's try that again. So we got memories, requests, and resources matching. That gives you what's known as a guaranteed quality of service in Kubernetes. Very important for performance tuning applications in Kubernetes. But the other thing that really was important was sorting out the disk drivers. Now, I just spun them up with SCSI buses, which, okay, fair enough, that's fairly default. But in a virtualized environment, not great. So when I changed them to these virtual I/O drivers and ran my tests again, I ended up hitting 98% transactions per minute of the stateful set. Now, I was getting some variance as well between the stateful set results and the KubeVirt results. So this is near as makes no difference about parity in performance. Okay, I am very well aware that running tests like this in a lab using HammerDB is one thing, and actually deploying out, even in a dead test environment, multiple VMs or running SQL Server in Windows is a very different thing. We're thinking about stability, resiliency, for just to name a few. So that is pretty much where I am with my KubeVirt test at the moment. We've got the performance there. The next thing is disaster recovery, a big one for us SQL Server folks. And then we'll have a look at stability. But if you want to check out what I did with the performance tuning really in depth, and I go through absolutely everything, all a little bit of testing we did, there is another blog post here for you. And with that, if there are any questions, I'm here.
Thanks so much, Andrew. If you could share the link to your blog post in the chat.
Oh, yes, I will.
Help a lot of people, as clicking on the screen doesn't really work, no matter how much I try.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Hang on, I'll grab them now.
And as during the entire event tonight, if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat. So Nikki can take the stage on GraphQL.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let's start with sharing my screen. I love these lightning sessions. Really back. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, all visible.
Yeah, nice. So really quick, I'm Nick van Voenhoven. I'm a unit lead Fabric and Power BI at PowerDops, a small consultancy firm in the Netherlands, in Den Bosch, so in the south of the Netherlands. Working with everything, a Microsoft Data Platform, mostly Fabric, Power BI, but also Synapse Data Factory, some old stuff, so to say. Let's dive in. So I'm currently working for doing a project at a real estate investor in the Netherlands. Last year we started with a POC, so a proof of concept in Fabric, and now doing the implementation. But they are actually shifting their business a little bit because they have a lot of buildings and that they own and manage, and the property managers that do the management of the property and the administration. They actually wanted to give them more tasks and do more administration on their side. So the company itself doesn't have to handle that, but they still have to get the data from the buildings and from the owners back because they have to report on it. So we started to think about how to deal with that master data. We wanted to keep that in one place, but also share the data to the property manager and getting changes back, for example. But that's the use case that I'm showing today. We actually also wanted a rather easy way to export the data, and that's why we choose GraphQL on top of Fabric SQL database to do that. So let me first show you over here the setup. So we have a SQL database, and in this case I used the sample data that you can populate it with. So it contains some products and categories about the fictitious company. So that holds the master data. You can connect GraphQL to a table or to a view, to store procedures even in the Fabric SQL database. And you can expose that as an endpoint, so an API endpoint. You can then call that endpoint in, for example, a notebook, in the Graph Explorer also, so in the GraphQL item itself, or also in any custom app that you want to build for that. There's one caveat on connecting the GraphQL to different sources. So in Fabric SQL database, you can either choose for a single sign-on or a saved credential. If you're using, for example, Azure SQL, then you have to use a saved credential, so service principal, for example. You can't rely on a single sign-on. But more on that later. I will show you in the demo also a little bit about that. And yeah, the part I'm showing now is still in tenant A, right? So in the tenant of the company, but in the end, we also want to call that same endpoint from the property manager, so from a different tenant. It's not that different because the endpoint is still a public endpoint. You just have to give credentials that you create in tenant A to the property manager, so to tenant B, and they can create that endpoint either also in a notebook or in a custom app. If they have Fabric, they can use the same kind of structure with that, but it's not mandatory. So they can just call the endpoint with any app that they use. And I mentioned we also want to get the changes of the data back, but we're doing that in a slightly different manner. We're using actually user data functions for that, so they can post data to our, well, in this case, a lakehouse that we used. And we're doing some approval steps also on the data, so they're not allowed to change all the data from a building, for example. They can't change the street or the postal code, but they can change some other characteristics of the building. So there's some approval steps in there that we also wanted to incorporate. So that's why we're not using GraphQL on this part. But you would also be able to update data via GraphQL if you want to. So let's dive into the demo part. Yes. So I have a workspace here with the items I just mentioned. So we have a SQL database. These are the GraphQL items. This one is a single sign-on. And this one is set up with a safe credential, so it's service principal. Also good to know, if you create the GraphQL item and connect to a source with SSO, then all the items in that GraphQL have to be connected with single sign-on. So you can't mix SSO and SPN or the safe credential in one item. So let's have a quick look at the SQL database. So I use, as I mentioned, the sample data from SQL just to populate it. So it has some customer product categories. And if you look at this, so it has 4 main categories, and I also created a few views. For example, to only show bikes or only show components, and we'll come back to that later, because we're going to call one of these views in GraphQL to only show a certain part of the data. So yeah, it's like to match the example of the property managers. They can only see their own buildings, for example, and not the buildings of the other property managers. Now, for example, if we look at the tables in the database here, if you right-click on one of the tables, you can already connect it to GraphQL from within the database. So let's show how that works really quick. So it already selected a table. If you want, you can select more or select any of the other items, so stored procedures or one of the views. But for the example, let's just choose this one table. That brings you to the GraphQL item over here, and this actually shows you the interface of the GraphQL. So over here you see that right now the connection type is single sign-on, so it uses the credentials of the caller to access the SQL database. So if you connect with a service principal to the endpoint, so the endpoint that you have here, so this is actually the REST API endpoint that you get, then that service principal also has to get access to the SQL database, read access in this case, if you only want to read the data. So that's one thing you need to be aware of. And if I just run this query now, that will get me in this case, the category IDs. But if you want, you can also include other columns. So name, for example, and then running that will give you all the other values also. So as I mentioned, you can also do mutations. So you can create, update, or delete for the categories if you allow that. In our case, we didn't, but you are able to do CRUD operation also if you want. Now let's quickly switch to another GraphQL item that I prepared in advance to set up the credentials also. So in this case, I used the product description table. So it works quite the same. You have the description. You can do some filtering if you want. So this is a top 5, but you can also do filtering on certain fields. Let's have a look. Did I get the view in here? No, let's switch to the other one. Here are also loaded the views that I mentioned. And if I switch to the query tab, so this queries the bikes view, and it actually mentions the first 10. But if we run this, then you will see that it actually only has 4 bikes in here. So it only shows the bikes that I want to show to the property manager in my case. So you can filter on data, and they can't see or adjust the view that is behind this, right? But all the fields that you expose through the view, they can access that. So if they do have access to all the columns in there. So if you look at the columns in this view, they can get all the columns that they want, because this query, you have to send that as a payload to the API also. So if you do the API call, then you send this as the body payload. So if you add a column here, then the data will just be returned if it's one of the columns that's in the view. So you have to be aware of that. Everything you expose in here will also be available if you query it. So that's an easy generate code actually. So you can get Python code to test this. And this is the part I mentioned. So the query is in here as a payload of the endpoint. And I actually already set this up in a notebook here. So if I run this, so this is still in the same tenant, right? So the first example that I showed. And if we run this, this will return the first 3 product descriptions actually. And I can adjust this, of course, to also include the name field, for example, or other fields that I know, or not the top 3, but all the products, for example. So that's what I can do in here. But the actual use case for us was to be able to call this endpoint from a different tenant. So now I'm in. You see it on the purple bar on top. This is my own tenant, right? Let's switch to the PowerOps tenant, so for my company. I also created a notebook here where I save the credentials for the service principal in the, let's do that again, to run this one, in my key vault. So I set this credential up in the other tenant, so in my own tenant, and now using those credentials to get a token, fetch the token correctly. And let's see now if I call the single sign-on endpoint, what happens? Because I didn't give the credential that I'm using here, I didn't give that access to the SQL database. So if I call it via the single sign-on GraphQL, then you see that it failed with an authentication error because it can't get the data from the database. But if I do it via the saved credential, so the same endpoint, another endpoint, so the other GraphQL item. So we have the single sign-on here and the service principal. So I'm now calling the service principal one. You can actually see over here that it has a saved credential type. And I already ran this. So the saved credential notebook does return the data. So I have the product categories, bikes, mountain bikes, and so forth. And this actually calls the view that I mentioned earlier, so the bikes. And well, this is now from the other tenant, right? So in this case, I get the data back. I can process it on my own tenant, do with it what I need to do, and then if I want to get the data back, or just the data and get it back in that way. So that's the use case I wanted to show. If there's any questions, let me know.
Nice one, Nikki. I hadn't thought of this one to connect to data through different tenants. It sparks a few thoughts in my head.
Yeah, and it's not that hard to set up. You just have to think about the master data and how to handle that.
Yep.
But connecting itself is not that hard.
Nice one. So anybody, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and then we can go to the last session of tonight from Ed Pollock, live from the USA.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm here. Feeling festive.
I'm wearing the hat as well.
Haha, excellent.
So you've got the final 15 minutes for the people who stayed all night.
Well, I appreciate everyone taking the time today. You need anything else? You good to go?
You good to go?
All right, well, let me share my screen. Thanks for having me today. It's the end of the day, so if anyone here is popping a few drinks, I don't blame you. Feel free. This is fun. So this session is actually all about a Christmas present from Microsoft after years and years and years and years and years of asking for, can we please just have regex in SQL Server? Why is there no regex in SQL Server, et cetera, et cetera. They finally granted our wish. It only took about 30 years, but we're here and it's wonderful and I want to talk about it. So here we go. This is who I am. I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I love playing with data. I write about it, I speak about it, and I do all sorts of things with it. I'm also going to drop in the chat a article I've written, so if you want more explanation of all this, because I'm going fast because of lightning talks, it's the one time where I can go fast and no one complains. But if you want more, I have an article attached here. Is it a drinking game? It's a little early for me, but you're more than welcome to dive into that one. And if you make it a drinking game, I can't wait to hear about it afterwards. So let's dive right on in. This is cool. Finally, in 2025, we have full regex support, not just like the using the like predicate with operator with the percents and all that, but the full standard regex. You can use any regex patterns you want. There's lots of brand new built-in functions, and they do lots of great things. There's bonuses in there too. And so a lot of our really old cruddy code that was long and complicated and hard to read and all that good stuff can finally start to go away, which is great. We can replace it with something better or write new code to not be confusing. All the built-in functions I tested are pretty easy to use. They have predictable results, and they handle a lot of the funny stuff like nulls and blanks and things like that way better than I could. Let's put it that way. These functions were added to Azure SQL Database about 1.5 years ago, in fact, which is a great preview. If you see something come to Azure SQL Database, it's probably coming to SQL Server at some point in the not too distant future. And then it did. And here we are. So we've been asking for it. Some of these features require compatibility level 170. So if you have a lower compatibility level, some things may not work. Just keep that in mind. I dive into that in the article, a lot more detail, because we don't have time to go into a lot of detail today. We have 15 minutes, not 15 hours, and I'm sure some of you might be tired, which is fine. The rest of this is really just demo. I love demo, especially live demos during lightning talks, because what can possibly go wrong, right? The demos are simple, though. A lot of this is really just text manipulation. We don't need my giant baseball stats database with like 1 terabyte of data. We can do this with simple stuff. So I'm just going to make sure we're on the right compatibility level here. I don't want to demo failure. I want to demo some fun, cool, new stuff. So I'm just going to walk one at a time through all the new functions, what they do, and how to use them in basic context. And if we have extra time at the end for questions, great. If we do not, reach out to me, connect, whatever, afterwards. I'll be sure to post all of this information afterwards so you have it. So first new function is regexp like. And this is basically just checking to see, is there a regex pattern in a string? 1 is yes, 0 is no. That's it. If I run this query like this, it'll give me every single piece, every single row where this string has this pattern on the end, ny parenthesis. In other words, in the US, if you have this certain state, province right here, you get them all. There they are. Done. I can make this more complicated. I can say, give me something that starts in a capital A and ends in a lowercase a. Sure, why not? I look here and I can see capital A, lowercase a. Done. Really straightforward, which I love. We can also do things like, and these are examples, there's so many ways to use it. If you use regex, you know the flexibility that it has and the amount of stuff it can do. So how about this? This gives me every single row back that has the letter S twice consecutively, S, S. So you get back some various names here that happen to have that in the name. Again, all straightforward stuff here. If you know regex, great. If you don't, you don't. But this lets you quickly find strings that have a pattern in them. And then if we want to count how many times, because knowing that it's there isn't good enough, how many times does the pattern appear in a string, we can use regex count. So for example, I go here and I count the number of times that double S's appear in a string, and I get them all back. I consider some scenarios where they appear twice, other times once. And I suppose if I scroll down a lot, there's a lot of zeros there. No surprise, right? I can also, if I want, add a parameter that tells me what character to begin at, because we can be flexible here. I want to start at a certain character because maybe there's some special symbols, or I just didn't feel like writing a more complex regex. That's all. That all works too. So I do that, I add the extra parameter, it begins at character 6 instead of character 1. My poor desktop, maybe it's the Minecraft server going right now, there it goes. Great. I can see now that I have less count because I started at character 6 and I missed a bunch. Great. So I'm getting all the cities that have certain patterns in them, and I'm getting back great results. I could also say, hey, give me back all the cities that have the word new followed by anything else, right? New Brighton, New Britain, New Buffalo, New whatever. No problem. /s is a space. Again, all standard regex stuff that used to be a hassle now is easy. I love easy. You can also find those that start or all strings with new in them and returns a start location. So I can actually return, this is the next function, regex instr. This goes ahead and will return the starting location. So it can begin returning more information, and there's actually more after this too. So this is the beginning, telling me, all right, there's the word new right there. That's a character location 7. I can again tell it what character to start at. So it'll be looking after that and saying, okay, I'll get the second instance or anything after character 1, for example, after character 2 of new. And so I'm finding them here. It won't find a location here because this new begins on character 1, but I'll find one here because self new port has it later in the string. And there's, of course, the third parameter that tells us which occurrence to get. Again, very flexible functions with so much utility. So start at character 2 and give me the second location of the word new, and there aren't that many of them. Here we are. And then finally, we can actually tell do you want to return the start or ending position. So if I want to flip it around a bit, I can add one more parameter. Instead of giving me the starting position, it'll give me the ending position. Again, you may or may not need these all the time, but they're great. And I can get wild and crazy, and I can make ridiculous regex here. You know, give me cities where the second or later word begins with N, followed by a lowercase w later in the string. I can make it case sensitive, blah, blah, blah. And I get what I want. So if you have wild regex out there, you can bring it into SQL Server and it'll handle it well. And obviously, performance-wise is what you get if you're scanning strings, but you're already doing that anyway as part of this work. So we're just going to do it a little better now and have simpler code. All right, here's a great one that I actually like a lot with because there's bonuses in it. Regex replace is just like replace, but instead of working on strings normally like we're used to, it can work off regex patterns, which means you can replace anything with anything. You know, I could start off by replacing new with old and make some new city names for fun. I could replace new or old, there's the or operator, with mid. I don't know why, it's kind of funny. Why not? Let's do it. And I do that, and now I have a brand new set of cities where I've changed either or, and I can have as many as I want. Again, this is regex. I can make this as long and as fun as I want. We can also add in the parameter to make it case insensitive or to look for a certain occurrence. So in this case, only replace the second occurrence of new or old with mid and do a case insensitive because I don't want to deal with that. And then I can see that it maintains the first one, changes the second one, and only where that exists. Great. And yeah, I see callouts over there to cleaning scripts. But yeah, you have to get to SQL Server 2025. Here's another one, regex p substring. This one will return a substring. It's just like substring as you're used to it already, except you can operate off regex, which can use a literal or a regex, and go. And keep in mind, all these can operate off literals if you don't, if you want, or regex. So in this case, I have some fancy regex here that gives me the contents of parentheses. Go to the first parenthesis, give me what's inside, and then finish. Yes, I wrote that. It's pretty awesome, right? Looks like gobbledygook, like ASCII art. Here's another one. Give me a letter prefix if one exists. And so if there's a letter in the beginnings, give me all the letters in the beginning, as many as there are. Otherwise, stop. So 1 letter, 2 letters, or null if there's none. I can also change to a star, and that star actually makes it so I get a blank back instead of null. So if you don't like null, you don't have to is null it away, but you can if you want. Again, as the data person, it's all up to you to do what you want to do. Here's another fun one, regexp matches. This will find all matches where you have a regex string inside of it and then return all of them. So this is kind of cool. I run this, and it gives you a lot of extra information, which is why I like this. If you need lots of information, this is where you go. So this one, for example, tell me where I find double S inside of a string. It gives me it gives me an ID, a ordinal within each one, a start and end position for each one, the match value, and then a JSON containing all that data. So if you really need everything about a string, you can do this and get all this back, just like that. And you have more than enough information. If you want more than enough information, you can get it. Here's one I particularly like. This is just like string split normally, except for regex, but you can use it on multiple characters. So if you've been using string split and you really wish you could have more than one delimiter, now you can. Regexp split the table can take all delimiters you want, regex stuff. For example, here, split the sentence up based on spaces, and there we go. And I can see that it returns everything back the way I want it. And you notice no extraneous spaces either, which is also nice. I can also go back to the double S experiment from earlier and split up my strings based on that and wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. And there we go. I split them up. It looks kind of gobbledygook, but we can do it. Similarly, I can split on more than one character in string split, and it didn't like that very much, did it? I have to put the N in there. Fine. You are killing me here. Killing me here, killing me here. I swear this worked earlier, so I get for getting a new version. Well, anyway, it does actually work, but you don't quite get what you want. I don't know why it's barking at me right now. I'm not going to waste time on it. But I just split the table, I get what I want. And there are some extraneous characters there. You can get rid of them easily enough. Just like this. And so if you want to split data up using more than one character, like string split, you can. Last but not least, there are flags. I showed you case insensitive. You can also do case sensitive. There's also a multi-line mode and a new character matching mode, and those specifically target how to handle end-of-line characters and new line feed characters, which normally drive us crazy, right? Those char 10s and char 13s, who likes those? I don't. They drive me bonkers. I don't want to deal with them. These take care of them for you. So let's jump back over to PowerPoint. All of that fast-paced demo was essentially showing you that there is full regex support in SQL Server 2025. It does everything you ever wanted. In some cases, you can reuse these functions where you currently use things like string split or things like that, or replace, where you want more flexibility. And so your ugly code that currently uses those old functions become clean code using these, even if you don't have regex. It's just bunches of stuff. It handles all your unexpected inputs, the nulls, the blanks, the whatevers, beautifully. And for your very complicated queries, you might get better performance, especially for the split to table. You can take advantage of the ordinals of things that you otherwise had to concoct on your own using a cauldron and stuff like that. So improve your old code. And there we are. Everything you ever wanted to know about regex in 2025. And if you want more, I posted the article. And then off we go. And yeah, I saw the comment there. String split requires a single character delimiter. That's why it doesn't work. Thank you. My demo is supposed to fail. I'm being silly. But the new function does not fail because it can take multiple characters. So are there any questions after all of that fun?
I have
love
one
this.
question.
Yes.
I've been trying out regex from CTP whatever when it was made available. and performance wasn't really all that good, but in your demos, performance is really good. Did you index something, or is this the first full release that is actually doing the work the way it should?
Great question. So I didn't do anything special here with any of my queries. What I will say is that performance has gotten better. Between the original CTP and the public release, the RTM, performance has improved. There's been a lot of discussion amongst the MVPs about performance. It's better. If you haven't used it since the early times, try it again. I've not seen any major performance problems recently with the most recent version. You do get what you pay for, though. So if you put regex functions in your where clauses and your group bys and stuff, you know what you're paying for there. But in general, I've not seen any major problems, but I did see what you're talking about early on. So they have improved performance. I do not know if there are further examples of places where they can improve it further, though. If you know of any, feel free to send it over. I'd be interested in looking at it. I'd be curious.
The part about like cleaning up your dirty code really speaks to me. I've only recently created, actually for a client, a data cleanup script, and things like cleaning up phone numbers, addresses, things like first character, last character, stuff like that you mentioned. It's this all speaks to me. I would have used regexer, but my regex support, but my client was on SQL Server 2017, so
yeah, and we're
there were cross supplies instead.
I mean, getting anyone upgrades 2025 yet is a little hard, but it's good to know what's out there in case it can help push people in the right direction towards upgrading in the future. Because, you know, waiting a year isn't so bad, but when clients begin waiting 2, 3, 5, 10 years, then it's painful. Anything else?
Anyone can
Thank you
unmute,
very
so
much.
if you want to say something, feel free.
Thanks for having me.
Or thank you so much for coming, Edward. Really appreciate it.
You are welcome. Is there somewhere I can post my stuff, by the way, or a place for it?
If you send me a link, I'll make sure people can get to it. If I've done stuff correctly, this session should have been recorded as well. So the attendees get the recording too.
I didn't see one of those like be aware that you're being recorded things. So
yeah, that's why I'm a bit scared, because I do see a recording button being active at the top of my screen.
Cool.
So it's like, I don't know, could go either way.
Well, we could be surprised, right? I love surprise. Things happen. It's the joys of all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not recorded, we can just come back tomorrow and do it again.
We'll
right?
do it again. Yeah.
There we go.
Live.
Why not?
Wasn't this doing it live?
With all working demo stuff like that.
I thought this was a test run. Are you actually publishing this?
There are actual people here.
That reminds me of a year past Summit where they had a recording issue, and like a bunch of speakers had to re-present their session to get it recorded afterwards. And I'll tell you, doing it the second time with no crowd,
no thank
not
you.
as fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
Yeah. Thank you, Reitze, for putting this together.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It was amazing to present and amazing to watch. I wish there was more like this. Maybe if there are some other holidays, you can do this again. Like, how's your Easter looking so far?
Quiet, so who knows?
Make them all festive and themed. I have theming here for any holiday you can imagine. Test me on it; it'll be awesome. It could be a blast.
Yeah, I don't know which sweater to use for summer.
A sweater.
Yeah, a sweater would be
Beach
nice.
ball, that kind of thing.
Nikki, is that Kurt's Power BI map thing behind you?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's the first one. So yeah, I think he also has a new one, more Fabric and One Lake stuff. But yeah, this good. Yeah, I really like it.
Right, chaps. It was great seeing you all. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you, Andrew.
Have a
See you
wonderful
soon,
night.
Enjoy the holidays.
You as
Thank
well.
you. Bye now.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a great one.
Yeah.
See
Thank
ya.
you. Bye.
Right. See you around.
See you around, Magnus. Thanks
Yep.
so much for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.